Hey, what's up, you guys? It's your girl Lauren Sizzle, and you are now tuned in to one of the hottest talk shows in the nation. We Talk Weekly's After the Talk.
I'm Classy Lady Sparkle. You want to binge listen to our shows? Follow the We Talk Weekly's podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Spreaker.
What up, folks? It's your boy Charles Gregory. Make sure to follow us on all our socials at We Talk Weekly.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Lily. So make sure you keep it locked to We Talk Weekly on 106.5 FM.
Okay, so today we have Zuri Dale, MWM, MPH. She is an entrepreneur and scientist that has a truly unique story. So Zuri is an avid learner and holds a bachelor's degree in biology from Texas Southern University and holds 2 master's degrees from Texas AMU. Understanding of art and skin science transfers wonderfully into the art of micropigmentation. So Zuri has a lot of different hats that she wears. Zuri is a licensed tattoo artist in the state of Texas and was awarded the PMU Women of Color Award, Best New Artist in 2019. Hold on. Zuri is also an epidemiologist, and her current work is exploring the virus that causes COVID-19. Y'all know what to do. Put your hands together and give a warm We Talk Weekly welcome to Zuri Dale.
Yes. Hercules. I got to bring this sister in here. Oh, wow. Let me give her a round of applause again.
Black girl welcome.
I'm kind of intimidated just to talk to you.
Yes.
Where you at, Zuri?
Yeah,
there she is.
I'm here.
There she goes. And so, first, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well vetted, well read, well academically inclined, well everything, well black girl magic, well STEM related. You all of the above. You check all of the boxes, right?
And well fashion sense. I'm loving these glasses.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, dynamic background. I don't even know where to start with you. All right. So let's start with what got you into some of the things that you're doing, from being pretty much clinically tested, right? Understanding epidemiology, understanding pretty much STEM. Still you women in STEM, which I think is, we always try to amplify that position when it comes to black women. But what got you into that particular field? Because right before you answer, we have a lot of boys and girls sometimes scared to even go into that lane, right? And so, not knowing that, is something a lot of times hands on, and that they will get more out of it than they think, but they're intimidated, right? And so, what got you into that particular field?
Well, I was interested in STEM from a very young age. So I knew very early on that I would pursue a career in the sciences, but I was not exactly certain what it would be. I started doing research at the university near my home when I was in the 9th grade, actually. And I remember very vividly that I was doing a science fair project. And for the science fair project, I had to have what was called a qualified scientist at the time. And so in order for me to compete, I had to get someone to sign off, that I had a qualified scientist. And I did not know any scientists at all. So I remember I got online and I Googled, and I was just a 9th grader, but I said scientists in Houston. I did not even know what to type. And so Texas Southern University is what popped up. And so the very first, person who I saw is who I contacted. And I remember contacting them, and I was like, hey, I have this science fair project. Can you sign this document? And so the gentleman who answered the phone says, well, I need to see this project. So he brought me to the university. I remember it was 5, 6 o'clock. It was after school. My biology teacher took me up there. And he saw the project and he said, I'm not signing this. And I'm like, wait, this is just a little high school science fair. And he was like, no. if I'm going to sign, it has to be like a collegiate level science for a project. So he scrapped my entire project. He brought me to the university, and I began doing research at TSU as a ninth grader. And that is what kind of really got me into the sciences. I went on to pursue my undergraduate degree at TSU. And so that is really what kind of molded me to pursue a career in the sciences. I mean, it's less than 4% of African American women in the field. So we're very, very, very underrepresented. So I think that that's probably what keeps me.
Fantastic. And which is also the reason why we like to amplify that message, because I think that it's important for people to see, a sister like you who doesn't look the cliche, and I hate to say this, but don't look like the nerd, right? That looks cool, that they can identify with, that they can see their likeness with, right? And so I think it's important for us to continue to show that science can be sexy, right? And so to speak. And so since 9, you've been into STEM. What got you into this idea of, I believe, semi-permanent makeup? Like, I want you to expound upon that. That's a new term that I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard. But what got you into that, and how would you define that?
Well, it seems very random and it seems very isolated. People ask me that question all of the time. But through my business, I have found a way to continue to amplify the sciences. So, I actually first entered the industry when I was in school. I was pursuing my second master's degree, and I was just looking for some sort of creative outlet when I entered the industry. And so I was always interested in like fashion and beauty and all of those things. So I never was the traditional, I guess, as you would quote unquote, nerd, as people would describe. And so I was always very interested in just beauty, fashion, anything that had to do with, highlighting and accentuating the features of African American women. So when I got into the industry, at first, it was just to find a creative outlet. I was slated to go to medical school. I have been in school nonstop since I was 18. I had started doing research at the university. I had an internship every single summer. Like, I had never had any time off between the age of 18 and like 30, 31. I was always doing something. So I wanted to find, something else to just have a creative outlet. And so that's why I got in the industry. I stayed in the industry and became more passionate about the industry when I saw the disproportionate amount of women of color who just had bad work. And so I started to explore, why is it that there are so many African American women that do not have good brow work? And so I realized through my scientific background that most artists did not understand the cellular complexities of working on women of color. Our skin is different even down at the cellular level, and people just were not equipped to work on that type of skin. People also didn't understand that the skin is an organ, and when you're implanting this pigment, you're implanting pigment under the skin. So here we are with a lot of artists who are just haphazardly doing services, and they don't really understand the scientific basis of skin science. And so what I've done is I've merged the art and the science of permanent makeup. So everything about my business is not just producing the brow, but it's highlighting and focusing on the scientific principles of a tattoo, and how are we able to yield good, stable hair results on a particular skin type, and how do we legitimize and justify every single step of that service with the science. And so it seems very random and isolated, but I've actually bridged the two quite well. So it just kind of works.
Man, that sounds like a patent that I'm hearing over there. That sounds like a patent.
I feel like we've all seen brow work that just does not look good. I know there's the ladies on the call. We have seen people, with brows that just do not look great. And then it's like, who did your brows? And why, do the brows look like that? And you would be astounded, by the number of people who do not understand the science. And I always say, you do know the skin is an organ, right? Like an organ, like the heart, like the pancreas, and you are implanting under the skin. And what happens is, it is most people who perform the service are simply not qualified to break skin. And that's because it's an industry that's not regulated, right? So trying to raise the standards of an industry that's not regulated through science and science education is the hallmark of my business.
Jeez.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I'm left kind of speechless because these are some things that we don't normally. I mean, as you stated, which is the reason why you went into it. Most people don't think like that, right? Most people don't think at the skin as an organ, right? We think of I guess what's first the dermis, right? And then you have the epidermis, right?
The epidermis, the outer layer.
And so we don't think like that, right? We just think it's just one part.
We think it's just one thing. And I think they also look at it like it mimics topical makeup. Oh, well, I can draw my brows on, or I do makeup pretty well, so I can do this, And it's not the same when you have a layer of tissue that sits on top of the brow. The underlying vascular system, there are health implications of the service. And when you think about, people of color suffering at disproportionate rates from poor health outcomes, and how does this service impact a person who is diabetic, but they don't know that they're diabetic, right? When you look at the prevalence of the incidence of diabetes in our community, and how is this work going to heal on a person who has high blood pressure? We know that high blood pressure is, the prevalence and the incidence of that is higher in our community as well. Even the way our body metabolizes the products that we use, and knowing what products are safe for people of color, because not only do we suffer from poor health outcomes, but access to health insurance and access to health care is also inequitable. So we have people providing these services, but they don't understand the implications of the service that they're providing.
Yeah, what's interesting is that we were just talking about being equitable, right? And this health equity thing is serious, and systemic racism is serious. Being able to have access is serious, right? And so I think you touch on a lot of things that's very important as it relates to people of color. I did want to ask you, because you mentioned people of color, do you find any differences in skin when it comes to people of color versus our white counterparts?
Absolutely. So our skin, we tend to have more sebaceous glands, so we produce more sebum, which is more oil.
Hold up, back up. We not. Well, I need you to walk us through it.
We have an oilier skin.
All right, there we go.
And so that actually can be a bit frustrating in terms of our makeup application. I feel like, the other ladies on the call, we all, we're always blotting because our skin tends to oil, but that's actually what keeps us looking younger longer in comparison to our Black counterparts. Right. We also have a thicker skin type. And what's interesting about that thicker skin, not only does it helps us to, live long, helps our skin to just look younger longer. That is one that has implications for the services that we provide, because with a thicker skin type, if we implant the pigment too deeply, what happens is that you have a thick graft of tissue that grows over the brow. And what we tend to see in people of color is that their brow tends to ash out, or they tend to gray out, because people are implanting too deep into the skin.
Interesting.
I think another thing, and this is one of those psychological impacts, is that when you think about the perception of pain and how people tend to think that people of color have a higher pain tolerance, what happens is that artists will implant in people of color deeper than they would on a skin type that they consider to be more fragile or more sensitive. And so because of that, we end up with a lot of work that ashes out or that grays out. But even down at the cellular level, our skin is just different. It is just structurally different. Some of the protein structures that we produce are just different. It's thicker. We have more collagen. We have more elastin in our skin, which works to our benefit the majority of the time. But when you think about these services, it is definitely a consideration as well.
Zuri, you hit on a whole lot of different things.
I
know, beautiful things. Like, we don't realize that when we get certain piercings, like you said, because of the melanin in our skin and the texture, we keloid more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even down.
Right.
Even down to like when you were talking about like diabetes. I don't know if I say it again.
Diabetes and wound healing. So
Yes, exactly. They look at our feet, but even the pigmentation from the jawline. I don't know if you've noticed, but when people who have diabetes, a lot of times they have the dark pigment above the cheekbone based on their sugar levels. There also a lot of times when you have anemia and you get the dark pigmentation underneath the eyelids, or underneath the eyes, because of the blood flow from the heart. So our blood and our skin type is so different than our counterparts, because a lot of it, our skin is our biggest organ, and it comes out in our skin.
and it's a specialized technique to be able to work on, you know, our skin type. And it's just a skill set that a lot of artists just do not have, quite honestly. And so, day by day with my company, we're working to just combat some of those myths. And a lot of the myths that I think were created in the industry, just like everything, was meant to keep a certain group of people exclusive, right? I feel like it's kind of, when you look at BBLs, everybody who was non-black wanted a BBL, and then now black people are getting access to plastic surgery. Now everybody wants to go back to the natural body. And I feel like we see the same thing in permanent makeup. It was very, very exclusive at first. It was a thing that women of color did not really have access to. They priced us out. So what they did was they created structures that prevented us from getting the service. So you would not imagine how many black women come and say, well, I was told that because I have melanin in my skin, I can't get it. Or I was told that because I keloid, I can't get it. Or if I have diabetes, I can't get it. But when you look at the underlying tone of those messages, the underlying tone is that because you are black, you can't, right? Because we don't see a high incidence of these things in people who are not black. So a lot of it is just debunking those myths. I have clients who come and they'll be deeper toned and they'll say, can I only get black? And I'm like, wait, what? Can you only get black? There are shades and shades of the color brown, but people really think that they can't get it because that's what somebody has told them. Or people are getting it and artists are not educated on how to use pigment and color and what happens when a brown epidermal layer grows on top of the brow. So they're using black. And so what we're seeing is color shifting. Brows are turning green, they're turning blue, just because people are just not knowledgeable about even how to pick the color. Because I can use a color on me and I can use a color on someone who is non-black. I can use the exact same color. But once my skin covers it as a filter, it's going to look different on either of us, on both of us, even though I use the exact same color, right? So just trying to educate people on those things and debunk a lot of myths that have eliminated access.
Interesting. And that, my friend, is the definition of systemic racism.
Yes.
Jeez, you are. Yeah, I already said I was. Listen, you're amazing.
Bio,
Yeah.
Well, I think that now the epidemiologist in me is talking. The public health scientist is talking, because every day I'm dealing with disease and disease prevention, and with who's sick.
Yeah.
People who are poor, people who are uneducated, people who are black. Nobody else is sick, but those groups of people when you think about it. So I'm doing it every day.
Yeah, and I think that's a great transition to talk about the COVID piece, because when you talk about some of the people who needed access, who were dying exponentially, they looked like us. And a lot of that was because we were not able to have the access to either testing and even a vaccine at one point, right? And so let's talk a little bit about, it's almost not... I can have you on for anyway. Let's jump right into that, because you're cooking with grease, and this is going really fast. But I do want you to touch on that because I think that was a necessary piece.
So COVID-19 has definitely underscored why there's need for a public health agenda beyond COVID-19, specifically in Black and Brown communities. So if you were sick or if you suffer from a chronic condition, more than likely that condition has been further exacerbated. And now the literature is showing that people who did not have chronic conditions, now what it's showing is that there are a number of people who are developing diabetes post COVID-19. So not explicitly saying that if you got COVID, it has led to diabetes, right? There's it's not necessarily a causal association, but right now researchers are trying to explore the link between the two. And why is it that post COVID, so many people are diabetic? Does it have anything to do with the way the virus has attached to our cells? And so that's something that we're really trying to explore regarding the epigenetics of the virus. Now, something that's also important to kind of touch on regarding COVID-19, and this is new news. So on the 31st, which is just this past week, the Biden administration announced that as of May 1st, that we will no longer be in a state of emergency. And I think for the average person who doesn't want to wear a mask or who doesn't want to social distance or who feels like, oh, COVID is over, it might seem obvious, right? Oh, well, we're not in an emergency, everybody's out. But I think that people do not realize some of those services that people receive due to us being in a state of emergency are going to be taken away. People who were underinsured that were able to get Medicaid with no hassle, no red tape under a state of emergency are going to likely lose their benefits. COVID tests, vaccines, COVID treatments, those things, because we will no longer be under a state of emergency, are no longer going to be at no cost. Medicaid insurance rates increased by 30%. It's some 20 million of Americans that have Medicaid. That was up 30% from in comparison to pre-COVID. And they didn't have to renew. So their Medicaid was just continual, right? There was no renewal because we were under a state of emergency. But as of May 1st, we're going back to what the processes were before. Paying for tests, paying for vaccinations, having to renew and go through the renewal process for Medicaid. So when you think about it, we want to stay in a state of emergency, right? So we may not like the mask, we may not like the social distancing, but our uninsured rates were very, very low actually during the process of COVID because people just received so many temporary services that they did not realize were temporary. So as of May 1st, we do have reason to be concerned about the state of health outcomes, particularly for people of color, because if you are, undereducated or underemployed and you don't have health insurance from your employer, and you lose your Medicaid, then what happens to you then? So we have the epidemiology where that's me, the epigenetics, of the virus, but then there are so many social, racial components of this virus that are still yet to be explored that people are going to realize after May are really going to become a thing.
Yeah, which is important for the study of health equity to continue to research on that because it's definitely necessary. Listen, Zuri, you know what? This was amazing, and I'm sorry I have to let you go. You have to promise that you'll come back.
Yes, I'll be back. I'll be back.
Yeah, and because I think what I would like to do is bring you on a little bit more often as we talk about certain issues health-wise that affects people of color, Black folks.
Yes, I would love to. I would love to.
Because I think it's important to have somebody who is kind of a specialist when it comes to, read when it comes to certain things. And I think you have that. And so I appreciate you. Thanks for coming to the show. Before I let you go, why don't you tell everybody how they can get in contact with you, how they can reach you, all of the things you got coming up, all that good old stuff. Yeah.
So you can reach me at www.artistrybyzuri.com. I am also very active on social media at Artistry by Zuri. We talk about art and science a lot on that page. In March 23rd through the 26th, I actually host a large-scale permanent makeup conference where artists of color from all over the country come and convene in Houston, Texas, in order to learn how to work on that specific skin type. So that's going to be happening in March, the weekend of the 23rd or the 26th. So follow us on social media so you can stay abreast of what we have going on.
Fantastic. Yeah, let us know. Maybe we'll come out there and do some coverage and all that good old stuff.
Don't say that. Do not have me contact y'all.
the ladies would love to come out there.
Please contact us.
Yes.
Don't worry about it. Y'all gonna have an email from me Monday morning.
Absolutely. Sure.
I promise. Y'all laughing.
No doubt. My uncle out there, so we gotta make a trip. So there you go. We got the beautiful Zuri in the building, man. It's your boy Charles Gregory with the beautiful
Lauren Sizzle.
and the beautiful
Classy Lady Sparkle.
and the beautiful
Lady Esther.
and the beautiful Zuri. You want to say?
Zuri down.
Yes.
There you go. So there you go. So thanks for coming to the show. We really appreciate you. I think
Zuri.
Thank you,
know,
Zuri.
yeah, absolutely. People need to see a likeness like you, that looks like you, that they can identify with. That's not necessarily the white man in a lab coat and a stethoscope, that type of thing, So absolutely, it's good to see you. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want you guys to go anywhere. When we come back, we got a dynamic show. We still got good news and bad news, and we got the sizzle. So I don't want you guys to go anywhere. We'll be right back after this, y'all.
What's going on, you guys? This is Bridget Kelly, and you are locked into We Talk Weekly.